Welcome back into the Lightweight Pregamers, a fantasy football podcast for the Pregame HQ. Today, we have some great topics ahead of you. We have some trade rumors swirling around the NFL, and there was this game last night, the Super Bowl was played, where we saw Tom Brady take down the Kansas City Chiefs to earn another Super Bowl there. But we're going to talk about instant reactions of that one, go over all the trade rumors swirling around the NFL like I just talked about. But again, I cannot do this alone. So we got two of the best analysts in the biz. We got two of our pregame HQ writers. We got Charles over here. How we doing, Charles?
Dude, I'm doing great. Just freezing over here, man. It's about 7 degrees outside.
Oh, I thought it was cold here, man. In Denver, we got 19 today, and I was like, oh, I was not
Ooh,
ready for this.
That's a heat wave.
It was 67 like 3 days ago, and then it became 19 out of nowhere. Like, I'm not okay with this. Like, walking my dog today was not fun. And to not leave him in the dark right here, we got Matthew Morris over here from Pregame HQ as well. How we doing today, buddy?
Doing well, man. Had a blast yesterday. You know, the game itself wasn't quite what a lot of people expected, but I mean, it wasn't short of entertaining moments, that's for sure. And man, I don't know about you guys are talking about the cold over here. I'm over here in Cali. We're in the 60s, so hey, I'm chilling here.
All right, I'm gonna delete you from this talk. I can't hear about the Cali weather right now. I mean,
only the people that are freezing everything off are allowed to be here right now. So
yeah, if you're like if you're not in the teens or less, we can't have you on this one. So we'll see you next week. Then, so speaking of all this going on, let's dive right into this one. Let's jump into this bolt feet. We have some trade rumors going around with the NFL. We thought this might go down before the weekend happened. We thought it might go down during the Super Bowl. Nothing's happened yet. It's been a lot of smoke and not a lot of fire. Well, I want to talk about Carson Wentz over here. So I'm going to start with you, Matt. What do you think of the Carson Wentz rumors going on? What do you think is going to happen? Let's hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, man, this Carson Wentz saga has been kind of crazy. You know, you get the trade talk swirling around towards the end of the season with Hurts coming in and everything. And, you know, the notion is that the offseason, you know, he's going to be moved. And then they fire Doug Peterson. You're like, oh, well, that seems like they're picking Wentz over Peterson. And then all of a sudden you get the trade rumors swirling right back up. It's interesting. This has already been a crazy offseason. You know, you have the Stafford-Goff trade. And so you get this thing going down. It's going to be an absolute wild offseason for quarterbacks. You know, the biggest rumor that I've heard swirling here is with the Bears. You know, I heard something along the lines of Nick Foles, Terry Cohen, and a first for Wentz plus, you know, all sorts of stuff being thrown out there. And, you know, I just don't see it. I feel like for the Bears, that's just another Band-Aid they're throwing on their quarterback situation. It's not going to do anything in the long run. It's just a minor Band-Aid. Maybe Wentz gets a little bit of his old self back. But you do have the connection there with John DeFilippo, who was with Wentz in 2016, 2017 in Philly when he was actually playing pretty well. And so maybe he could kind of mend that a little bit. But ultimately, I mean, I see Wentz. The Colts seem like the most ideal fit that we got here going on. So we'll see what goes on there.
Yeah, we heard so many different ways that's been flowing around in there. It's kind of funny. I feel like Carson Wentz has a connection with every coach that has a quarterback problem right now because we hear like, oh, he's worked with this coach. He's done great with this one. It's just interesting to hear all of that going on right now. And yeah, I've heard a few rumors about the Chicago, who were all expected to happen the way it was talking. The way it's looking they're looking for a Matt Stafford type deal, as we saw, which is going to be the 2 first-round picks, the third getting thrown in there. But Charles, what do you think about this? And do you think he's going to the Bears? Do you think he's going somewhere else? Do you think he's staying put?
Oh, initially when it's like talking about the firing of Doug Peterson, I was like, okay, great. Ownership has said we're backing our guy, we're backing our quarterback. We're going to bring in the coaching staff. Matt mentioned how I always mispronounce his name, Filippo.
Yeah, DeFilippo.
DeFilippo. It's like bringing him in. It's like, okay, they're getting the band back together. They're going to circle the wagons, you know, Buffalo Bill style. But it hasn't come out and said that he wants to come in and be a Philadelphia Eagle and be the leader. He hasn't come out and said that. And for your quarterback not to come out and say that is very damning in my mind. So it's like 3 teams, it's like that I've identified besides the Bears and Colts that I think would be interesting landing spots would be the Jets, the Panthers, and then also my personal favorite would be the Broncos. I know that sounds kind of out there, but Wentz, he played his ball up in the upper Midwest. He has that cold weather field type of quarterback, and I think he'd plug in very well with the Broncos. But the issue will be is what do the Broncos give in return? It's like they've already mentioned they want a Stafford-esque deal. So unless the Broncos are willing to part with multiple first-round picks or something along those lines, I don't know if it's going to happen. It's like I was just throwing ideas down on my board before we got to talking. What I would be interested in seeing is maybe what if 2 firsts and Jerry Jeudy. The Eagles need wide receivers. The Broncos have a lot of young, talented wide receivers and tight ends, so they kind of have a plethora of them. Maybe they can plug in Jerry Jeudy, give him a fresh start, and guess what? Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Hurts, pretty sure they played together before. So,
yeah, that's an interesting take on that one. No, that's definitely an interesting way to go about it. I mean, the Broncos do want a different quarterback. Like living out in Denver, I hear all the rumblings on that one. I have a friend that actually works for the stadium, so I hear a little bit more than most, I think, with that one. But no, they definitely want to try to move on from Locke if they can get the right deal. The downside is, though, I don't think that's a feasible move for them because I don't think they want to give up capital. From what I'm hearing, at least right now, the biggest thing there is they offered like a third for like Watson and a fifth or some ridiculous lowball offer way in the beginning of this. But no, I totally think that Wentz is on the move. Originally, I agree. I think when they had the new coaches come in, they were telling them, hey, Wentz is our guy. If you have anything different, don't sign up for this. But it seems they're going the opposite way. They're now looking more to Hurts. And again, that's a big thing when the quarterback does not come out and be like, I want to be a Philadelphia Eagle. And it seems like, especially that last game of the season where Hurts got pulled and he was angry for getting pulled. I think he wants to be the guy. So, question, kind of bring it back to fantasy before we're going to our next topic. If Wentz gets dealt, where do you have Jalen Hurts in your quarterbacks for 2021? Let's start with you, Charles.
If Wentz gets dealt, I think a lot of it will depend on the draft. Philadelphia obviously has a huge hole on their offensive line. And yes, Hurts proved that he can manage behind a subpar offensive line, but if they can improve that offensive line, I mean, I could see Hurts very easily being a 10 to 15 range quarterback for next year. It all depends on what type of scoring you're doing. Are you doing 6 points for touchdown, 4 points for touchdown? What about rushing perks? Because
we'll assume standard 4 point -1 for this obstacle right now. We'll just assume the basic standards on that one. I mean, we can go a little fancy with it later on, but 4 point passing touchdown, -1 for interception. You say about 10 to 15 in that range?
I'd say 10 to 15. If they get offensive line help, I mean, I could easily see him cracking that top 12 QB1 territory. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it just depends on the draft and what they bring in.
Oh, 100%. The draft can change everything. Matt, what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. If they can address some of those issues, the offensive line and maybe get those weapons sorted out. They've got some solid young weapons, but they need a couple little pieces there. But I can easily see him as maybe a low-end quarterback 1, like in the 11-12 range on the high end. But yeah, 10 to 15 sounds just about right there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. I mean, I currently have him as my quarterback 15 in my rankings, but I think he can go as high as like a top 9. I don't think anybody above that is ever going to fall behind it. Unfortunately, we have like a clear set about 8 to 9 guys, especially the people coming in from the draft itself that are locked in and I'm not going to move back. But his upside is 100% that low end quarterback 1 and 100% could be like week winners. The downside is he has never thrown a game in the ones we saw with over a 56% completion percentage. So he's more of like a novelty to me right now because he can get better. We've seen like quarterbacks like Josh Allen get better, but
this just came to me. Could he potentially become a Lamar Jackson-esque style player? Just throwing that out there. I mean, because Lamar Jackson came in, and just had a decent end to a year and then just blew up the following year.
I don't think it's going to be that much of a big jump. I think there's a reason he won the second round instead of the first round. There's a reason he didn't get the start till Wentz was playing one of the worst seasons we've ever seen from a quarterback. But I do see what you're getting at. I think he can definitely have weeks of that and the right matchups and definitely get a hot streak. But again, I see a ceiling around quarterback 9 personally. So, yeah.
I know. I agree. Yep.
Perfect. I love being told I'm right. Moving on to the next part.
Don't we all?
Yeah, Deshaun Watson watch. I asked the group last week. Nothing's happened yet. We're getting more and more news about how Deshaun wants to be traded, but the Houston Texans are turning down every trade offer for him. Charles, is Deshaun Watson getting traded? Is he sitting out, or is he playing for the Houston Texans in 2021?
Oh man, that is the $1 million.
You got that flag behind you. I gotta go with you first.
Well, I'm a Cowboys fan at heart, so I have a nice little twist to it all and how it could end. At the end of the day, I think Watson will be staying put in Houston. Initially, I was all in on him leaving. It's going to take a king's ransom. I mean, to pry Watson away. Plus, you also have to send him to a team that he wants to play for. Having that no trade clause just kind of really, handcuffs everyone in this deal making. So it's like my personal fan favorite is him going to like Washington football team or to, dare I say, Jacksonville. But we'll dive into that one a little bit later on. So I think he stays put. Final answer.
Cool. So. Matt, what is your final answer on this one?
Well, as a 49er fan, I would absolutely love to tell you that I can see him going to the 49ers, but I just don't see it happening. That reported asking price that you're hearing about, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 defensive players, it's just too much. I can see as a 49er fan, if you want a first, a second, and Nick Bosa, I'd probably pull the trigger there, but you're asking for 2 firsts, plus Bosa, plus another guy, plus the seconds. It's just way too much there. Ultimately, like Charles said, I think that he's stuck for now in Houston as much as he wants to leave. That new regime has been adamant that he's not on the table. He's not on the block. They're not trading him. If they do trade him, ultimately in the end, you're going to need to see a high pick or a quarterback involved, very likely. I mean, their backup right now, AJ McCarron, you're not going to roll him out as much as you would love to maybe see a tank there so they can get a high pick next season. Nobody wants to see AJ McCarron out there full-time quarterback in the NFL anymore. So definitely don't want that involved. Ultimately, teams that come to mind that you see out there, the Jets, with the 102 and the possibility maybe they throw Darnold in there. The Dolphins, you've heard swirlings with the Dolphins and Tua in the first, and they have the draft capital for it. You got to look at those teams with the draft capital. Maybe the Panthers, you heard the Panthers were pretty high there on the Stafford trade talks. They got Teddy, maybe Teddy, no pun intended, is the bridge quarterback there in Houston while they figure all that out. And then they have the 108 there that they could use as well. So just a few options there. But again, ultimately, I think he stays in Houston, at least for this season. It'll be interesting. I kind of had a thought when all this started. He wants to be gone. He doesn't want to play in Houston anymore. Is there a chance that we see some sort of holdout from him at the beginning of the season? Is there a chance that he's willing to sit out games to kind of get what he wants there? And so it'll be interesting going forward for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility we have going into this, is especially us as fantasy football analysts. We have to think of that when it comes to his draft capital, especially in one quarterback, but more importantly, super flex leagues or even dynasty leagues going in. There is that possibility. The downside with the collective bargaining agreement that we have right now, it's really hard for players to sit out because of how much of the penalties they have, and you can't waive them anymore. So he's literally taking so much money hits every single time. I'm not sure he's willing to do that as much as he says he is. Like in the past, like you could see players sitting out and then they can waive the fines. That's not an agreement in the current ones. That's on the big factor, that one. So, I mean, I want to think he can be traded because he doesn't want to be there. My thought process, and I keep going back to my buddy posted a meme of a fat Deshaun Watson showing up to training camp, is that's what he would do. He'd show up in complete not game shape just to get traded. But end of the day, I could see him playing there. Panthers are an interesting take. Again, I think the Jets are the only logical spot he could end up.
Professional athlete just recently show up to training camp extremely out of shape. Wasn't that James Harden too?
Yeah, that's how you get traded, right?
Maybe it's something in the water there, So
he lost
something in Houston.
Yeah.
And then he lost all that weight within like a day, man. Like I want that diet plan that Harden was on. He gets traded and all of a sudden he's back down to game weight.
He just stuffed a pillow under there and decided to get bloated. After that. Cool. I like where your heads are at, guys. We'll get more details as the offseason goes on, but there's been a lot more quarterback rumors floating out there. Not a lot, still a lot of smoke, but I like to bring up the smoke that we have going on. We have quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Foles potentially on the move, all in these talks. So just a quick pick one, pick what you think. Are any of them get moved? Who's the most likely to get moved? Matt, where do you think someone's going, if anybody's going?
I mean, based off of some of the conversation we already had with Carson Wentz, easy answer there is Nick Foles, most likely to be traded. But out of some of those other guys, I think Derek Carr needs a good look. Go back, to the previous season. There was, so much tension there between Gruden and Carr. And this season, even, I don't think that they're totally convinced that he's any sort of long-term plan. Despite having his best overall and fantasy season since 2016, I don't think he's going to be the long-term answer there in Las Vegas. And like every quarterback on the QB market, he's been tied into San Francisco somehow. Yeah. So, but again, I think all of the guys that you mentioned ultimately are probably going to stick around for at least one more year.
Yeah, I think that too. But I think Derek Carr is an interesting one. This is why I've been advocating a lot of people to go get Marcus Mariota for the super cheap. Because he's owed about $10 million of non-guaranteed money right now to be a backup. And he played pretty good in his one relief stint there. So, and we've always known Gruden likes him as a quarterback since he was scouted. So that's a potential where if they move on from Carr, they keep Mariota, or they dump Mariota and Mariota signs somewhere else. I was thinking somewhere like Denver for a moderate deal to kind of compete versus Locke. I think he'd beat out Locke personally there, but that's just, again, speculation. But if some dynasty tip you can take from this is go offer a third for Marcus Mariota on the chance he's the quarterback somewhere, and that's a low risk, high reward trade there that I think could happen. But bringing it back to these quarterbacks, Charles, what are you thinking about these quarterbacks to be in the rumor mill?
I got two. One that I think should happen, and then this other one is a dream idea, like Dream World, Perfect Storm. The first one is mentioning 49ers and the New York Football Jets trading, swapping quarterbacks. Saleh loves Jimmy G. From everything that I've read, it's he appreciated everything that he did there out in San Francisco, and San Francisco's ready to get rid of Jimmy's contract and everything along those lines. What better way than to bring in a former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback from the University of Southern California to become an established starter there for the 49ers. I think the 49ers would probably have to give up, might have to give up a draft pick or two. Same with the Jets. The Jets could probably send a first-round draft pick, and then the 49ers, they got a plethora. It's just looking at their draft capital. It's they got 2 5ths and 2 7ths. So it's send Jimmy G for a 5th and a 7th for Darnold and a 1st, because end of the day, Darnold needs to get out of New York. I mean, Adam Gase has just ruined everything he touches. It takes about 2 to 3 years. We saw it with Tannehill. We saw it with Tannehill down in Miami. And he got traded up to Tennessee, and then he just blossomed. And so I think that's the most realistic trade I think we'll see this year. Other than that, my dream world, it involves 3 quarterbacks, 3 teams: Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, and Deshaun Watson. A 3-way trade. Just blow it up. It's perfect world. Let's just blow it up, right? Yeah. And get ready.
No, I'm ready for it. Let's go. Let's hear it. Play right. GM. I love it.
Houston right now is in dire need of draft picks, early round draft picks, right? It's they gave up everything. They shipped stuff to Miami with the Tunsil deal. They've been giving their draft picks everywhere. Thank Bill O'Brien for that one. But Houston would get Kirk Cousins, Dallas's 1st, 4th, and 5th of this year. And then Minnesota would give up a 1st-round pick in 2022 and a 3rd-round pick of 2021. So Houston's getting 2 1st-round picks, a 4th, a 5th, and a 3rd. Dallas, in return, gets Deshaun Watson. Jerry Jones loves nothing more than to stick it to the team down south. He wants to be in the news. That's what Jerry Jones loves to do. So getting this trade rolling would be great for him. It's a sign sign and trade. He gets Deshaun Watson and a 21st, third round pick from Minnesota for this year, and then he ships Dak up to Minnesota with Dallas's second round pick. So that would just be fun to see, just because I want to see something happen. Let's get some action going.
No, I mean that's a quite an interesting scenario, but I'm not sure they have the room to pick up another high-profile contract, even though for a much better player. Yep, dead cap would be a 41 mil cut, but he's a 31 cap hit this year. I knew there was a 41 in there somewhere, but
There it is.
so 31. Yeah, so I mean, only been 9 mil up, but then they still have to find the room to, because I think Dak wants about 45 mil a year. I think that's what he's looking for.
As a Cowboys fan, I don't think he's worth that much personally.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my own personal opinion. I think Dak, realistically, I think he should have signed his contract that was like 35 to 40 mil range last year. But I think that's going to be a similar option that he's going to receive from Dallas again, because they want, like, hey, dude, you got injured. Prove it to us that you're actually healthy and able to lead this team.
Yeah. No, I totally. I love that you went like super deep dive there on like an actual like realistic scenario for that. Like I said, if we can find some way to like trim off some of that salary cap from Minnesota, I could see it happen. I mean, Kyle Rudolph has probably made a cut there and a few other players. But awesome. I love you guys' heads. I love how creative this team is at the pregame HQ. So it's really good to see everything going there. So let's get to the meat of the show. There was a game last night, kind of a really cool one. There was a narrow victory in this one. It was the Puppy Bowl, 73-69. That we have Team Rough taking over Team Fluff there. I hope you guys caught that one. It was a beautiful game back and forth. No, I'm just kidding with that one. Super Bowl was last night. I know we all watched it. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers pretty much dominating, in my opinion, over one of the best offenses we've seen in some time with the Kansas City Chiefs. A 31-9 victory, 0 touchdowns from the Kansas City Chiefs, which, again, if someone bet on that, they made a lot of money.
Actually,
doing that there.
In Tampa, they did have 1 touchdown, but that was about it. So,
but, so, Charles, what's your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is that this just goes to show how important a defensive line and front seven is in the NFL. I don't care how many weapons you have, what type of talent you are, because Mahomes almost single-handedly won that. It's like you take away a couple doinks off the hands and off people's helmets, like Tyreek Hill in the first quarter, I believe, or on the second quarter. On the their fourth drive, or no, second drive when they settled for a field goal. Tyreek Hill.
There's so many drops. You can't keep track of the drops. There's so many.
So many drops. It's like it's like you put Mahomes on the Bucks and Brady on the Chiefs, and I think you're seeing almost a shutout. I mean, that's just how dominant that defensive line was. And I mean, go back to when Brady was undefeated and then they lost to the Giants to Eli Dumbface Manning. You know, it's like their defensive line is just impressive and just completely owned that offensive line of the Chiefs. That's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, no, that was huge watching that, all the pressure, which is the perfect game script on how to like do that. I never thought I'd see the day where Patrick Mahomes gets ruffled and he was running backwards 20 plus yards, but still making ridiculous passes that should have been caught. Yeah, so like,
exactly.
You can't blame Patrick for that game, but yeah, no, the Butterfingers were really good. They were sharing too much popcorn on the sidelines with Kelsey having some drops, Tyreek Hill, Darrell Williams dropping the ball. I'm missing like 5 guys that have dropped passes by this point, I think. But Matt, what did you see? What's your takeaway?
Man, I mean, so take us back to the beginning of the game. Those first couple drives, you get punts by both teams, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, they're going to adjust. We're going to get some more offense here. It might not be as high scoring as we thought, but they're going to adjust. And we saw the adjustments from the Buccaneers offense. They were able to adjust and take advantage of what the Kansas City Chiefs defense was giving them. I don't think we saw a whole lot of that from the Kansas City Chiefs. One of the most telling stats that I saw on Twitter was from ESPN's Mina Kimes. She tweeted out that Mahomes was pressured on 29 out of 56 of his dropbacks. So 51.7% percent of the time he was being highly pressured. And that's the most of any quarterback in Super Bowl history. And to top that off, they did no favors. They had their backup offensive tackles in. They were missing Eric Fisher. Mitchell Schwartz has been out for forever now. But, and they did no favors. They ran 5-man protection on 92% of their dropbacks. Get those guys some help. Get Mahomes some help. Please, man, that guy is running around trying to do everything he can, making just ridiculous throws as he's falling down and scrambling all over the place. Get the man some help. But that Buccaneers defense, they did absolutely everything they needed to help Tom Brady just manage the game manage them to a victory, And man, I was a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie, in the MVP. I thought Devin White should have had it. Brady played a great game, obviously, but you look at how that defense played and how they affected the game, and Devin White was all over the place. 12 tackles. He had the interception, constantly containing the edge and getting in there. You had Shaq Barrett too. I thought he did a fantastic job getting the pressure in there. Those were two guys that you just saw in there constantly. And so, the Tampa Bay defense was just unbelievable, played their hearts out, and it showed up in a big way.
No, they totally did. Like, that defense was locking it down in every way of the game. But this goes to show, offensive line is probably one of the most underrated things that you need for football. Like, we know it as people that analyze the game, but like an outside looking in, when someone takes like an offensive tackle in the first round, no one's excited. But that's such a big deal for like the team itself that we don't take into account. And again, on the defensive side, they had the right game plan. Bruce Arians came in ready for that one to get everyone locked in. I know it's, like I said, beautifully done. But like, one of the biggest takeaways for me was how little the wide receivers did. I guess they didn't have to do anything, but we're talking 3 total catches between Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They combined for 40 yards, and one of those catches was an Evans 31-yard of the 40 combined between those two players. That's ridiculous. If I was going to tell you that Brady throws for 201 yards, you would be like, okay, so how much did the Chiefs win by? Yep. Like, they're just insane stats. The team just came ready. The defense really won the ball. I agree. I think it should have been a defensive player, but when it comes to the NFL story, because it is a business at the same time, I can totally see how Brady got the MVP. I completely disagree on my end, because I think he did a fine job. He did his job. I don't think he was the most valuable person on the field, but he did what he needed to do, which literally is all he's done all playoffs. I don't think Brady beat one team this whole playoffs, but I think that he did everything he needed to do to put that defense to set him up for success.
He came in well prepared. And they attacked Kansas City. Kansas City has a weak spot on their defense, and that was their tight end. They given up I think it was like the 5th most yards to tight ends over the year. Mm-hmm. And they just kept picking and picking and picking, like siblings do towards each other. You just keep poking until finally someone snap and Gronk goes for 2 scores. Whoever had that prop bet just made out like a champ.
Well, Gronk also had 11.2 yards per reception. Like, he was not like target on the little dink and dunks. He was going downfield and got one of the plays that was like arguable pass interference that was not called on that, but they called enough arguable plays on both sides with that one. But yeah, he was targeted way down the field. They were letting Gronk go on that one. So yeah, it was definitely a really cool and that factor. Like, honestly, we're taking the best parts of a boring game. Let's be real with how the way it went down. But kudos to Tampa Bay. Congratulations. I know my hometown is like 40 minutes south of Tampa, so they're partying it up, which they shouldn't be in my opinion, but that's a whole story for another day for Florida itself. But I'm happy for them. Bring it back to fantasy real fast. Tom Brady, he's most likely to play another year. He announced it after the game that he's probably coming back. At least one, maybe 2, but I think 1 is probably the number there. In redraft and dynasty, let's get both rankings really fast. Where would you place him in those? Charles, I'll give you a second. I kind of threw a curveball at you, so Matt, let's start with you.
It's that's fine, man. No, in redraft, it's Tom Brady finished, I believe, as number 8, number 7 quarterback, depending on your scoring. So he's a top 10 quarterback. And with Mike Evans just coming out recently, I think within the past couple hours, saying, "Hey, I'm willing to take a pay cut. I'm willing to make this work. Let's build something here." That right there that's the Brady effect. I mean, you saw this up in New England where Brady could convince these players who have like just outlandish personalities, a la Antonio Brown, and Gronkowski to buy into the team. Like, we're a team. Let's build something. I think, Tom Brady has a top 10 quarterback next year. It's like if I'm getting Brady and if Brady's still there in like the 9th or 10th round for quarterbacks, depending on what league you're in, what type of league you're in, it's like I'm taking them and I'll be happy with it. Now, am I also grabbing someone else? Potentially. But yeah, top 10 easily for redraft. Dynasty wise, unless you're in a win now mindset, it's like all I care about is right now. I wouldn't be looking to draft him. I'd put him on my bench maybe. I'd probably have him like around 18, like 15 to 18 range, just because who knows how long he's going to be around.
Gotcha.
So,
no, it's good to have that both sides of it, though we're listening for that one, because we do have listeners from all sides of the fantasy community. So I like to bring that up as well. Again, I threw a curveball, but you handled it well. Matt, let's see what you got down. Where do you have him for redraft? Where do you have him for dynasty right now at a quarterback?
So redraft right now, I'd probably put him around QB 12.
TB12, QB12.
I think, yeah, exactly, right?
Button on that one.
I think there's a little bit of concern there. Now, like Charles said and stuff, he can take those players like AB, those, and Evans is willing to take a pay cut to come back. But, you're likely to lose Godwin. Godwin's going to be highly sought after. He's been a big weapon for them. But again, people want to play with Brady. And so, who else are they going to bring in? I have no doubt they're going to bring somebody else in that's going to fill that place just fine. You got Scotty Miller waiting in the wings. Like I said, I have him QB 12 right now in redraft, but I can easily see him an argument for, QB 10, QB 9, moving him up a little bit ahead of the guys. I have right now Tannehill and Stafford just ahead of him. I can see easy argument for moving him above them. Dynasty, hit it on the head. Unless you're competing, he's not a guy that you want. If you are competing, then you're going to want to grab him. I'd say probably have him in the QB 20 range for Dynasty overall. If I'm drafting now, and again, you gotta be in win now mode if you're grabbing a guy like that for sure.
100%, I agree with that one. But I think Charles is itching to say something. I can see it in his eyes right now. What were you trying to jump in there?
Oh, well, like you're talking about Godwin potentially leaving in free agency. Take a look up in Chicago with Allen Robinson. He's already been very vocal on social media saying, hey, I want out, I want a quarterback, so on and so forth. What's to stop, Tampa Bay from like saying, okay, we'll throw a couple picture waves, send them down here down to Tampa, and we'll just keep this train rolling. There's so many different potential opportunities, and I don't think you can legitimately say no to any trade possibility in this day and age.
Yeah, well, the perfect thing is also Allen Robinson is a UFA, so he can sign wherever he wants. So they don't get Chicago nothing to get that one. But no, I totally get
my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. You just want to send stuff to Chicago, but Chicago needs it. I understand. Give them something.
They need warm weather. Awesome time.
That's fair. Yeah, they got some of the best food. I'll give them that. I miss living in Chicago for that. But so what I have them right now is around quarterback 11 to 12, like that range right there. It's hard to put them above in a one quarterback league, the guys that run. So like when a one quarterback league, I go for upside. So I'm trying to it's hard for me to I want to put in Tom Brady every week, which I do. I'm fine with it. But I don't see him winning me enough weeks for a one quarterback league to make it worthwhile. Unless I get him the double digits rounds, he's got a good starting. He might be with my streaming routine there. But when it comes to Dynasty, this is something I like to bring up, or even a 2 quarterback league. But I love him in a 2 quarterback league. But for Dynasty, I won't be drafting him. And if I just start up today until quarterback 25, so it means I'm not getting him. Because there's no longevity in that, and I can make up that a lot of the time with that same mindset of I'm going to get a running quarterback and get the upside there and partner with someone safer that I can kind of play matchups. Or in a super flex or 2 quarterback league, I can find someone that can get 80-90% of his production, but have them for 5+ years and make up the points somewhere else. But if I'm in a league right now and I'm playing and I just was either a championship team or a team fighting for the playoffs, I need that little edge, I might toss out my late second in a super flex league to try to get Brady for a year. And I'm okay with that for that rental. I'm okay paying that, but I'm not okay drafting that. So that's, again, a whole other discussion for another day of philosophy versus practicality of when you are doing that. But I love your guys' mindset where you're at. Again, we're all about the same. He's definitely going to be a quarterback one low end. It's hard to put him above some of these running guys, but he's still got it. Like, no doubt.
I have a question for you, kind of coming full circle here.
What's
All
up?
right, let's say Carson Wentz goes off to whatever team. He goes off. And Jalen Hurts is handed the keys to that Eagles offense. Where do you rank Hurts versus Brady then?
We're talking redraft?
Yeah, redraft.
And so philosophy thing here. In a one quarterback league, I will take Hurts above Brady because I want that upside of games I can win a week for, because I'm trying to get that positional advantage. In a 2 quarterback league or a super flex league, I will have Brady over Hurts because I want them as my second quarterback to be a foundational piece where I don't want that peak and valley from them.
You have that nice solid floor. It's like I'm going to get about 225 yards and a couple scores.
Yep, and that's what I want. But if I'm going for like a 1 quarterback league, I want the guy that's going to score like 30, or I can get like 8 and be like, whatever, that happens.
Like that happens.
We can't predict it all. No, great question there with that one. I love that you threw it back at me. So to throw it back at you guys one more time, the story of the night for me that I saw was not an MVP candidate, but someone that was in the discussion for the game. Leonard Fournette, one of the best playoff runs we've seen from running back in a long time. He was left for dead, cut by Jacksonville, put on the roster, sitting behind Ronald Jones. But this playoffs, he's looked mostly like himself in what he'll draft. And he'll never be the same guy we saw in college. But has he earned himself a starting job somewhere? And if so, where do you put him? Matt, let's talk to you.
Starting job? No, I don't think I can quite go that far. I highly doubt it. But I think he's earned a quality backup job with some more opportunity than he saw for most of this year. You look at the playoffs, and specifically at these last 2 games, you look at Green Bay, you look at Kansas City. They had weakness in the running defense, and so, yeah, did he look like the better running back between him and Ronald Jones? Yeah, absolutely. And he looked good for sure, but I can't go so far to kind of place him in a starting job anywhere currently with the makeup of the running back landscape there. So
it's a crazy landscape. We have so many quarterbacks, running backs on the move right now. So the whole fantasy football, the whole NFL can be shaken up so much. I was just curious. I posted this on Twitter last night, and I got some good responses. I want to see what you guys had to say. It seems like you're saying he's going to be a quality backup once again, kind of take that similar contract we just had. Charles, what's your head at?
Well, my head, many different places. It's like I think this guy, he obviously, the playoffs, he just turned into a completely different running back. No one was expecting this. It's like it looked like he was running back in Baton Rouge, back in his college days with how powerful he was running the ball. And I think a team that is in a win-now mindset, that has a salary cap space available to them, and the offensive line that he needs to produce is the Buffalo Bills. It's like we spent this entire season talking about how Devin Singletary is like he has all this potential, like the potential to be great. Same with Moss, potential to be great, and they just never delivered. Leonard Fournette comes in immediately, and he can catch all those swing passes. He can run it between the tackles, and what better than having a big bruising running back up in that cold weather? I don't know about y'all, but it's like it's 7 degrees outside right now. I don't want to go up and try and tackle a 220-pound running back in the fourth quarter. So that to me, that's where I see him as a potential starting running back next year.
No, I didn't. I didn't even think of that. That wasn't brought to my attention. I think it's a great idea because in case they don't want to pay they're not linked to Aaron Jones right now, which I thought was an interesting guy that could have gone to Buffalo. Mm-hmm. But Chris Carson was an idea I had going to Buffalo as well. But Leonard Fournette just might have crept his way into a cheap enough contract. So to kind of talk about what I think, I think of him as a lead of a committee. I don't think he's going to get a pure starting gig, but I could see him being like a 2 to 3 man committee, getting the 40% to 60% of the workload. Buffalo is a great situation where that can come into play with Moss, Singletary kind of being the other guys, and they're going to mitigate that as well. One spot that was brought to me, like I would love to take credit for this one, but it was brought to my attention, was Seattle might be a spot where he could potentially play, and they're not opposed to signing him back for a year or two and using him up, or just kind of like letting them ride with the committee going through there as well. Especially with, we don't know what Rashad Penny is. They have Travis Homer. No guys that are like really making me jump off the page like, oh, he's not gonna be able to beat that guy out. I mean, we can't rule out either that he could potentially come back to Tampa Bay. They seem to love him there. For some reason, Ronald Jones is in the doghouse all the time there, but that could be a potential as well. I think he's, again, maybe not a starting gig, my opinion, but definitely earned himself to be maybe the top guy in the committee is where I see it, which is the best you could ask for a lot of times in the NFL, coming from a guy that like you was left for dead, essentially. So
yeah, it's like for them to pick him off the waiver wires and like, okay, we'll take a first round running back for, what was it, like a $3.5 million contract is what he signed for this year, or like a $2 million base, and like, yeah, it's pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I think it's gonna cost more than that to get him back, though. I think he earned like a decent contract, but like running back contracts are so cheap normally, anyways. Like, don't let your kids grow up to be running backs. They're just gonna get abused. They're just gonna get and not get paid enough for what the beat they take. But guys, kind of tie it all in together, wrap it all up. Thank you both so much for all of your insight, all of your knowledge. Where can we find you guys? So Matt, I'm gonna start with you. Tell us what you got in the works. Where can we find you? And yeah, just let me know.
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at Peak. That's PEAKFF9. I'm consistently on there sharing content and ideas. I love promoting the work of our amazing team over at the Pregame HQ. So you'll catch everything. If you follow me, you'll catch everything for the Pregame HQ. And pretty soon I'll be working on a new article, a fantasy this or that of sorts. I'm going to be running threads related to that here soon to kind of gather some data. And so give me a follow if you'd like to take part in that, and I look forward to it.
I mean, just give him a follow in general. This guy has so many things in the works, and one of the great supporters we have over at the Pregame HQ, and one of our best content creators we have as well. And he catches everything, just like Allen Robinson, who has 3 drops over the past 3 seasons total. He catches everything that is catchable. Charles, where can we find your work?
All right, man. Hey, I am at the pregamehq.com. That's the Pregame HQ, as it sounds. You can also find me on Twitter at Heady_football, HEADY_football. If you don't know how to spell that, then I don't know why you're listening to us right now. But nonetheless, it's like you'll catch me. I'm going to spread the wealth to everyone. If you come in with a great idea or a great content, I'm going to be promoting you, especially all the geniuses here at the Pregame. It's like we have definitely been bringing the heat. It's like we're bouncing our dynasty rankings off of each other. We're bouncing everything off each other. We're complimenting each other very well, and I'm just glad to be here right now. So, right now, I'm about to start taking a look at all the draft information, and I sent out my January dynasty rankings. They're over there on the HQ right now. You can go take a look at those. I got the running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks, the 3 main guys, and I'm going to be evaluating all the college guys coming in and where they get drafted, and then probably about May timeframe, I'll go back in and reevaluate everything after all the free agent signings and draft picks. So.
You got your hands in everything going on right now. This guy is one of the hardest working in the biz right now. I love it. I love this team. For me, you can always find me every single week over here at the Lightweight Pregamers, hosting this, hyping up this great team we have here. You can also find me right down there at KidFlashFF, where you can hear all about my content going in. You can also find me at the Wrestling Mat podcast as well. So I'm going to send this off, guys. I'm going to say bye. For me, my cat, who you can see on YouTube jumping in this video, and these guys, Heady and Peak. I'll catch y'all later. See ya.